And 3. There it is.
I like all the lights.
It's festive. How dare you? No. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a very quaint episode of Small Town Failing Podcast, which I've got to imagine I've used before, but Mystic in general. But we'll get to that. I should intro that voice you heard is Allison from the Who's There podcast. That's it. That's all I got. Hey, Allison.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. This is a little bit different than my podcast because I don't think anyone's going to get stabbed in this movie.
Exactly. So yours, I love the idea, right? Because there's a ton of horror podcasts out there. I was on one for a while where you kind of talk about a movie or movies in general, but yours kind of focuses more on the host, right? Or you can explain it a lot better than I can.
Yeah. So I just interview horror fans and creatives about why they love the horror genre. Because I know when I first started like getting more into horror and like listening to a lot of horror podcasts, people were like, "Why do you like that stuff?"
Yep.
So, and then during the pandemic, I started playing horror movie trivia with a bunch of people, and I was like, "Oh my god, you're like you live in the South and you like horror movies, and you're a parent? What? My parents don't like horror movies." So, yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of crossover in the why do you like this so much genre or whatever you would call it with Hallmark movies, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
and I think, at the root of it, it's all the same, right? It's the comfort food or it's the, especially like you said, like in the pandemic, like whatever just makes you happy. Like,
Yeah.
just do it at this point, as long as you're not bothering anyone. So it's
Totally.
cool. No, I always thought it was a really cool idea because there's tons of podcasts out there where you're just rattling off about Evil Dead or something, right? But like, even back when I was on Bloody Good Horror, I always thought it was super interesting talking to like the people that listen and like all that stuff. I was never very good at the movie breakdowns. I was more into the just ridiculous banter of the whole thing. So here we are.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is kind of your background with Hallmark movies, if any? Is this the first one you've watched? I should say we're watching Mystic Christmas, which is part of Hallmark's Countdown to Christmas, which they started on the 20th of October. So we'll get into that too. But I guess what's kind of your experience with Hallmark movies?
I really don't know if I've ever watched one before. Christmas is like not my holiday. I kind of think it's like very consumer and like I don't know. I think it's just cheesy. I think it's a time for like your family to like force you to like be together and like pretend like you're having a good time, but that's like never the case. So I don't know. I don't gravitate towards Christmas movies very often. I don't know. I mean, I there's that Christmas movie that I watched last year about like the tutor who goes to this castle in this fake country and then like falls for the prince or something.
Oh, it might be like a Prince for Christmas or something along those lines.
Yeah. A Christmas Prince, maybe. I think I watched all 3 of those last year, but I don't know if those count as home. I don't think those are Hallmark. I think those are Netflix.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is, I think Hallmark, I assume, kind of invented the genre or whatever, but like there has been kind of this push in the last 5 years or so where I think other networks or, Netflix and things like that have kind of picked up that like, oh yeah, like these are kind of gaining more and more popularity and started putting out their own, right? Like Peacock did one a couple years ago. I forget. Do you watch The Real Housewives? I get mixed up.
No.
All right. So there was one a couple years ago that was with a couple of the housewives that Peacock put out, and then Hulu does a lot of them. Even Lifetime has like their own versions of them. So I think everyone's kind of jumped in on the game. So
yeah,
this podcast wasn't meant to be focused specifically on Hallmark. We do like a lot of movies outside of that, but Hallmark is obviously kind of when you mention, or you say like a Hallmark movie, even if it's on Netflix, like I think people know what you're talking about, right? Like it's like Xerox, right? Like, or Kleenex, it's just a brand that people get. So That's interesting. What so Christmas movies not so much your thing, but what about like Krampus and like horror Christmas movies? Can you get into those, or is that
Yeah. I love those because they kind of like subvert like the happy, like
yeah.
the fake happiness of Christmas. So, like, I have a list of Christmas horror movies that I watch every year that I'm going to make my boyfriend watch this year for the
Yeah.
first time because he's never seen them. So,
What's on that list? I'm curious now.
Better Watch Out,
Oh, nice.
Krampus.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I just put a whole bunch of them on Twitter the other day and I can't remember.
Cran-
Black Christmas 2019. I like the 2019 one
yep.
best,
Yeah.
which
I'll
I
go
know is
with
a
you
hot
there.
take, but
Oh, I agree
yeah.
with you. So don't worry about it. And nobody listens to this, so no one's gonna get angry. Krampus is like a yearly for Leslie and I, my wife. Like we watch that every year. I love that
Yeah.
one. But yeah, so no, thank you for kind of, diving into this. And I think I mentioned Mystic Christmas is the movie that we watched, and it just premiered this past weekend, directed by Marlo Hunter, who I think this is actually her first or maybe second movie that she's directed. Yeah, I want to say second at this point. And then starring Jesse Schramm, which I was trying to look up and see how you pronounce her name before you joined, and then I got sidetracked. So I'm just going to assume I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah.
And I also thought she was like three other people before this movie started. And even at certain points, like Leslie and I were debating like who this actually is. But so I guess the setup is this movie is a bit of a by the numbers Hallmark movie. Without going too deep because we'll kind of go through the whole thing. But what was kind of your initial reaction, even after like kind of watching the trailer?
Um, did I watch the trailer? I don't remember if I did. I chose this because I've been to Mystic, Connecticut.
That was my
I
next question. Yeah.
Yeah, I went there when I was in like 5th grade, so it was a very long time ago, but I've been there and I was like, well, it's somewhere I've been, so that's cool.
That was
Um,
kind of I was hoping that because I think I sent a couple options and I was hoping you would go for this one for the same reason, right? Like Mystic Seaport, which for people
yeah.
don't know is almost like a colonial Williamsburg type town
Yeah.
in Connecticut. And same, I want to say it was either 5th or 6th grade. That was our class field trip. And I'm originally from like upstate New York outside Saratoga. So it was like probably a 3-hour bus ride,
Mhm.
maybe a little less. What is I know you're in the city now. Are you originally from there, or what was the commute
Um,
like to?
I grew up on Long Island, so I don't remember how we got there, but I think we probably took the ferry across
Oh, nice.
and
That's a
then
lot nicer than.
drove over east to Mystic.
Mhm.
I don't really remember because it was 5th grade, but I guess we both had like the
Yeah,
same
yeah, for
core
sure.
curriculum. So,
Yeah, there was either there or I want to say maybe it was 5th grade was like Cooperstown, because there is like a
mm,
similar like little village there,
okay.
um, which is the most boring thing in the world when you're like that age. And even now, I don't know. I have not been there. Leslie and I did our anniversary once in Mystic, but
Mm,
like when we first started dating, so it's probably been like 15 years ago at this point. And I remember we went to Mystic Seaport again, but did not spend much time. Like,
yeah,
it can drag a bit.
yeah.
Have you had the pizza or have you seen the movie Mystic Pizza? I have never, but yeah,
No.
it was like a 90s rom com. And from what I understand, actually, there's a character in this whose name I forget, Ken. He's like the older gentleman that's like kind
Mhm.
of coordinating the
Yeah.
whole thing. I guess he was the star of Mystic
Oh.
Pizza, so
Oh,
it's a
that's a
whole thing.
cute Easter egg.
Yeah,
So I enjoyed watching this. Um, I wouldn't have made the same choice she made,
yeah.
but also I was so frustrated the entire time because I was like, why is no one communicating?
That's yeah. Like I think
No one's
that's
talking
kind
to
of
each other. The two main characters, they're like, no, they dumped me. They're like, no, they didn't. You like met once.
I think that's the thing that frustrates me sometimes in these movies. And like this, you kind of picked a good one because this seems to be the most egregious one that I've ever seen, where it's just like a simple, hey, if I said two words, this would all be cleared up.
Yeah.
So we can kind of set it up, right? Like it's Juniper Jones is our main character in here. And she is played by, oh, I should have the names in front of me. Jesse Schramm plays Juniper Jones. And she is a not a marine biologist, but maybe she's a seal expert, I guess is how they set it up. And she's kind of she's kind of giving this talk and breaking down seals, I guess, in what they do. And her best friend Candace that she works with, and I assume based on how this goes, she grew up with. Did they? And maybe I don't want to put you on the spot, but was she from Mystic also, or was it just Candace was? And
I don't know. I got the idea that they were like childhood friends,
yeah,
but and I like she something went fell through with her trip to wherever, so Candace invited her to come to Mystic.
yeah, yep,
So
yep,
I
yep.
don't think she was from there, but I could be
Yeah, because I
wrong.
guess a lot of the setup too is like her learning about things in the town, which she
Yeah.
probably would have known if she grew up there.
Hmm.
So yep, so she's originally scheduled to go somewhere overseas for like the holidays and do some sort of research. Candace convinces her to kind of cancel those plans and go back to Mystic with her to help kind of rehabilitate and then release into the wild a seal called Peppermint, which by the way, Peppermint has a IMDb credit on this movie. Peppermint's real name
Oh,
is Cork, and this is Cork's feature film debut. So you
that
know,
yeah, I loved that sea lion, that
it was
seal.
like I was actually surprised because I mean they've had animals in these before, but like they had Cork kind of running around like doing stuff. Like Cork was
Yeah.
kind of a delightful character in this whole thing. So Juniper agrees to go back to Mystic and help rehabilitate Peppermint with Candace. And that's when we kind of get the info dump that at one point Juniper and Sawyer, Candace's brother, had spent like a romantic weekend together, or had some sort of romantic entangling. And obviously that's the setup, right? And that's where things get awkward. And kind of what you were alluding to, we find out that they had this great weekend. They, I think, had plans to kind of get together. And who was it? Juniper sent Sawyer an email or vice versa, and the other one never
Yeah.
replied.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the setup, right? Like there's
Yep.
confrontation between the two because one didn't reply to another one's email, which to
Yeah.
your point is how this whole thing is set up. And it's like someone could just say, I did reply or I did send it. Something must have got wrong. Like people know the internet. People know emails don't get received sometime.
Yeah, and it's not like they met and had no common connection.
Yep.
It's like they just could have gone to the sister slash best friend and been like, "Hey, what's going on?"
That's the other thing that kept driving me insane. It's like there's Candace in the middle of this whole thing,
Yeah.
and like she easily could have played, the middleman between these two. Like it feels like it could have been like cleared up pretty quickly. And
Yeah. What's her face? Juniper could have been like
yeah,
married and traveling the world with this guy like 10 years ago. So,
exactly. Yeah, just based on like a simple conversation. So that's kind of like the running theme through this whole thing, which is 100% aggravating. And then the other kind of download we get is Juniper, and she really beats you over the head with it, is an introvert. And you know that because for like the first 10 minutes, she says it about 8 times. And then for the rest of the movie, she points out that she's an introvert. Which I'm curious, like, what your take was on that with Juniper.
to be honest, I don't remember that. I
Yeah.
don't remember her saying that at all. She didn't seem like an introvert. She was like fine with people. I mean,
That,
I
yeah.
I get it that she's better with animals than people because like I relate,
Yep.
but I mean, I don't. Yeah, if that was supposed to be her shtick, they did not do a good job. So
Yeah, it was weird because I agree. Like she kind of throws this out there at the beginning, and I 100% could see how it's like missed because I probably missed a lot of points in here too. But like she says that, but then and I totally get there's different aspects of this, but like she seems very sort of friendly and outgoing, and I get it that myself included, in your head you're having like full on panic attacks during these things, but like
yeah,
it felt like it was written by someone, and this is no knock, but like that is not an introvert and is just writing what they think an introvert might do. um,
yeah. They did minutes of research about what an introvert is
yeah.
like, and then they're like, let's put this in for no reason because like obviously like it doesn't come back.
Yep. So It so they try and juxtapose it with Sawyer, who is very much outgoing. Like the first kind of setup with him is like him walking through Mystic Village and like, hey, I'm going to help this guy with his lights this weekend and this person like fix her porch swing or something ridiculous. Like he's just all over the place trying to fill up his time, which could be like a strong sign of ADHD or something like that. But like it seemed
Or
like
ADHD, or he has poor boundaries, or needs to see a therapist to like deal with why he doesn't want to be by himself.
there's a
I don't know.
lot. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with Sawyer. And he owns the local pizza shop in Mystic, which by the way, I that pizza did not look good. Like it looked like
Yeah, well, it's Connecticut, which I
yeah.
I I know New Haven pizza is great. Get off my back, but Mystic is not known for its pizza.
Well, it's known for Mystic Pizza, I think, the movie, but I don't know if anyone goes there for the pizza from Mystic Pizza, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
Julia Roberts movie, so people,
Mhm.
and even that the movie's like what 30 years old at this point, so I doubt
Yeah.
it's like a big drive. But yeah, I was thrown off and I get very upset when there's like shitty looking pizza in any movie, and
Yeah.
this one
Yes.
for sure had it.
Yeah, especially as a New Yorker, I'm like, "That is not pizza."
Right?
Have to say the same thing every time I see, like, Chicago pizza.
Oh, I can't. I can't. So, being from the East Coast and moving out here to Chicago, Leslie and I have had like a lot of struggles with Chicago pizza. And I'm sure I've ranted about this on the show before, but it's not even the deep dish is good. It's a thing. I don't consider it pizza, but their thin crust is what they call tavern style. And it's like cracker thin,
Mhm.
cut into squares. And like you feel like you're at a Chuck E. Cheese like birthday party or something when you're trying to eat it. And people around here are adamant that it's delicious, but it is just upsetting. Like Sabaro is the
Mhm.
best thing you're going to find. So
Oh god.
yeah,
Sbarro.
which I mean, at a rest stop or something, it's not terrible.
When there's nothing else, sure.
Yeah. Well, there isn't here. That's the problem, right? Like,
Yeah.
although speaking of New Haven style, there is a guy from Connecticut opened up a pizza place in Chicago, and they make a New Haven style, and it's actually really good. Like
Oh, nice.
it's one of the better you can get. Yeah, yeah. So you can find good pizza here. You just kind of have to search it out. I feel
Mhm.
like it's not like New York or even the East Coast where you can just call a random place near you and get a
Yeah.
decent slice. Um, so I was curious, even like the cab ride to where Juniper's going, there's some like decent comic relief moments in this movie. And, there's times Hallmark always has, and, especially these holiday ones have like a tinge of comedy usually, but like I found myself actually like laughing at certain points in this. And a lot of it does have to do with Juniper's like awkwardness or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
like around people. Like I was curious what your take was on like, did it get you at any point, or was it kind of just a bland laugh here and there?
Oh, no, I definitely laughed, and I really liked her. I thought there was a lot of comic relief with her and then her friend's kid,
Oh
daughter.
yes, yep, yeah.
Yeah, and also sometimes with the seal, Peppermint.
Mm.
So
Any scene with Peppermint was really just
right?
pure gold. Um, which, by the way, that kid, great in this movie, but I 100% thought she was straight out of like The Orphan or something. Like, she looks like she could play terrifying, like, very well. And that's no knock against her. I just, her
Yeah, if you look at
IMDb
her
photo.
headshot, yeah, that's what
Exactly.
I'm looking at. She looks like she put a curse on me.
I 100% like the first thing I thought was like, oh, I've definitely seen whatever horror movie she's been in. But she hasn't from what I can tell. So
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised by that. Where the hell were we? Like, I don't even know where I am with my notes. So we get a few sidebars too, right? Like, so Juniper is now in Mystic helping rehabilitate Peppermint. She gets kind of put in this position where she's overseeing three interns
Mhm.
who they're labeled as interns, but they seem very good at what they do and almost like could run the show if they wanted to. And that's where I think they kind of push some of the introvert or whatever they want to call it is like, because she makes a big display of like, I'm not good on the fly. Like, I need to
Mhm.
prepare. I need to write up
Yeah.
notes. I need to, and one of the funny scenes too is like the next day where she comes in and has a list and she's like, no, no talking. Like, we got to do this, and this, and then kind of cuts everyone off. And then they kind of go do their thing. Like the intern side story, I thought worked well. And I'm curious at your take. But what I didn't really understand was there's this other side story with Brooke, who works at the pizza shop that Sawyer also
Mm.
owns, and kind of her pushing to be a manager through this whole thing. And they keep going back to it. And at the end, I guess I kind of get what they were trying to do there. But like, that whole storyline, I just did not really see a need for in this. And I'm curious, like, what kind of your take was.
So with the interns, I think they were probably like grad student or
Mm.
PhD student interns, which is why they probably knew more. They probably weren't getting their bachelor's in science at the
Yeah.
time. But I mean, it was fine. You got to see her be like awkward with people, but she figures it out.
Yeah.
Um with the manager, the woman who wants to be the manager at the pizza shop, I was as soon as she came on and he's like, "No, you can't be the manager." I was like, he's going to change his mind
Hmm.
cuz Juniper is going to convince him. And I think and that's what happened. But I think it also served a purpose to show that he was like delegating a little bit and like giving
Mm.
up some of his responsibility and not always
There you
needing
go.
to be
Yep.
there. Um and what was the other one?
I think that was it. There was just
Okay.
those two,
Yeah, yeah.
which makes sense, right? Like, and that's
Mhm.
I think that's kind of what I was alluding to towards the end. You're like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
he's letting go of the reins. Like he's definitely kind of controlling at the pizza shop and doesn't likes things done his way. But
Yeah,
I
we
it
we we could
yeah,
have dealt without that storyline, but whatever.
exactly,
I
yeah.
guess I needed to fill time.
Because there was like the first 3 or 4 scenes we get with Brooke, it just like I was clueless, like, why are they even throwing this in? And
Yeah.
the wrap up kind of makes sense, but it was a little like, what's happening there? And we get these other like weird tidbits about Sawyer, like he's never finished a book that like he got from the library, which I also thought was insane because you could just
Yeah.
get the book out again. Like it's
You're
not.
managing a restaurant in Mystic,
Yeah,
not Manhattan. So, like,
exactly.
is it that busy?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't. Anytime they were in there, it did not look like it was
Yeah.
packed, and
Would they have 2
probably
waiters?
yeah,
I mean,
like. And after seeing that shitty pizza, like I kind of get why like
yeah.
things weren't going well. So as expected, Juniper slowly starts to fall in love with Mystic, and we get this story from Candace that they're looking to hire someone full time there, and immediately you're like, okay, I see where this is going. But the idea is Juniper is going to help rehabilitate Peppermint. Peppermint's supposed to be released like Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve or something, and then Juniper is going to go to, I want to say, Iceland or like something similar.
Somewhere where she can see the lights,
The Northern Lights. Yep.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And that's where she's going to do her next sort of residency.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of talk about how like she doesn't like to stay in one place for a long time. Like every Christmas, right? She's in a different location, and like that's kind of her thing. And there is even talk, and I don't think we're spoiling anything, where Sawyer and Juniper start to rekindle pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Um, but again, without really resolving the
Right?
email thing until like the end.
Oh my
Which
god.
yeah, was very frustrating.
Yeah.
But
But their discussion when they're first sitting down together for like the first time or the second time, where she's like, "Oh, I've never spent Christmas in the same place since college," and he's like, "Well, that sucks. Don't you like to have tradition?" She's like, "Do you like the tradition, or are you just doing it because it's what you've always done?" And that's kind of why I don't like Christmas because
mm,
you're just doing the same stuff you're always doing, even if you don't like it. So
yeah, that's valid.
I get you, Juniper. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I get it for sure because there is like, and I feel like especially when you're growing up, there's a lot of stuff you just do, and like looking back now, you can see like I could see like my parents didn't want to do this, but it's just like okay, this is what we do,
yeah.
and you know, and it's interesting. I think I started to enjoy Christmas a lot more after I moved out, and Leslie and I moved like a decent ways away from my family. So like we would just do Christmas by ourselves, and like
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, like when it was one on one, like that's when I really started to like it. Because
Mhm.
I was the same. Like my memories of Christmas growing up, and I had a great childhood, but like you go to your relative's house, and this is like before iPads and phones and any of
Mhm.
that stuff. And like you literally just sit there and listen to your relatives talk about death. And like,
Yeah.
and you're like 6.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be hearing these things, but things are a lot different now.
Mm.
So where the hell were we? So, yep. So Juniper is starting to fall in love with Mystic now. She goes to this wonderful pastry shop where, she gets to know the owner and kind of falls in love with that. She discovers Connecticut style lobster rolls, which that whole scene where she kind of explains that, she likes the Maine style, which I think Maine is just lobster with some butter
Yeah,
versus
I don't know.
Connecticut that seemed to have mayo. And
Ew.
like this this whole scene where like he screams Connecticut forever in the middle of the restaurant, like I found very off-putting.
Yeah.
um but the whole idea is like they're kind of rekindling their romance, right? And like, we
Yeah.
kind of
Again,
see
with no
where things are headed.
communication. With no communication. My first question to
Exactly.
him would have been like, "Thanks for answering my email, you jerk."
Exactly, right? So she gets roped into helping out with their like annual Christmas something that's going on in the town.
Oh, it's a boat parade.
The
She's not
boat parade.
helping. She's just watching it, right?
So is the boat parade, but then there was also what took place at the aquarium. Was that
Oh,
like I thought that had something to do with it too, but maybe I just missed something, which there's a
wasn't
good
it like
chance.
a tree lighting or something? I don't know. I
Maybe they
don't
were all
remember.
kind of wrapped up in like some sort of festivities.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. There was something. I just can't remember what it was.
No, me either, which is totally fine. And I have notes, but apparently. So that's where Ken is he kind of leads it. He's this older gentleman that's very kind of, like military barking orders and like making sure everything's strict. And Candace, is it Candace that kind of ditches out and like convinces Juniper to keep going to the meetings? And like she goes to one and says,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be here for another one. And then of course she goes back to the other one. And at the end of the day,
Yes.
Candace is now like coordinating just about everything going on in this town.
Yeah, because Candace says that like, "Oh yeah, by the end of it, you're going to be signed up for a bunch of jobs because of the guy Ken," and then at the end, she has like 6 jobs.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And so at this point, there's the boat parade, which looked very lovely. There's this event at the aquarium, and the question I have for you is: there's a scene at this aquarium where the kid that we were talking about, what the heck was her name in this? Louisa, let's go with that. Gets lost, and it's Candace's kid. And Candace comes over and is very nonchalant about it, like minor emergency. My child's missing, and I'm like, in an aquarium that's like just completely open, people like strangers all over. Like I would be freaking the f out. Like Leslie and I even talked. She'd be like, I would not be panicking in front of everyone, but we'd definitely be like, where the fuck is the kid? Like, we lost her. We got to find her. Like, nobody seems concerned about this. Like, did you pick up on that or was that like a red flag for
no,
you?
no, did not have a problem with that because they are in an aquarium
Hmm.
in a small town. There are probably no strangers that are there. She knows everyone in this town, and it's not like I'm sure she didn't wander out the front door. So I think she's
That's
probably just
valid.
hanging out with the turtles or something.
Well, that was my thing. Like, so they find her and she's like standing next to a giant open pool with like Peppermint, who I'm sure is a very nice animal, but like, I don't know. My thought immediately goes to Peppermint is going to attack her, push her in the pool. She cannot swim, and that's how Candace's holidays are going to go, and that's the end of it.
Then she should have watched her kid more closely.
Right?
Sorry.
Like that was kind of my like, what the fuck, Candace? Like,
Oh,
why are you letting
see,
your kid wander off?
no, see, I'm all about free range parenting. Just let your kid go play with the seals. Hopefully, she lives on the water. I hope she can swim. It's
That's
not like
true.
she was
That's
5 years old.
valid. Yeah,
So, if she can't swim in a small, shallow pool of water, maybe it's best that Peppermint takes her.
it's valid. It's valid. So I don't know if it's exactly at this time or where, but for all intents and purposes, Sawyer and Juniper are getting back together. They've gone on a bunch of dates. They've spent a lot of time together. They're falling back in love. Sawyer looks at his email finally, which again, I found insane that like if for years there's been this debate over if he did or didn't send the email, he never thought to look in his like outbox to
And
see
he
if
only
maybe it
has
got
one
stuck.
draft. He only has
It's
one draft in his outbox.
only one, and it is the one that he was supposed to send to her, and he never thought to look at it. So he discovers like, oh shit, I didn't send this. This was all my
Yeah.
fault. Which comes out. Juniper now is starting to think like, hey, maybe I should stay here. She even says to Candace, like, before you make an offer to anyone to fill this role, let me know. Um, but then
You're
she,
you're you're forgetting the plot point that he has never left, and he
oh
has all.
yes, yep.
He's like, oh, someday I want to go travel, and she's like, why someday? Just go now.
Yeah,
So
that's the other because I think at one point he was supposed to go to Italy or something and ended up canceling
yeah.
it because of their weird breakup, which wasn't a breakup. But yes, he's literally like never left the town because he's so busy with the pizza place or helping that guy put up his Christmas lights or whatever. Like you get the impression
Serving
it's excuses. Yeah,
serving tens of slices a day is really time consuming.
of, of the driest looking pizza you'll ever see. Um, so they have this kind of mix up where he decides, okay, I'm going to travel, and she decides, okay, I'm going to stay. Um, is that how this gets set up? Yes.
Yes.
But like at a certain point, she's kind of on the fence and overhears what there's some sort of comment about like, oh, next year when you're here, like we'll do X, Y, and Z. And like she freaks out about that and decides she is going to leave, but then changes her mind. And then there's this like weird miscommunication where, right, he decides he's going to go, right? He's going to go to Italy and like travel the world for a year. And she's decided, well, I'm going to take this job and I'm going to stay and I'm going to live here in Mystic now. So that all kind of plays out, and I guess we can just talk about the ending at this point, and then I'm
Mhm.
curious your kind of take on that. He ends up going, which I actually thought was kind of nice because a lot of times in these it's like, oh no, I'm canceling everything and we're just going to do this, but like he leaves and we get a sort of year later, he comes home, everything's kind of wrapped up in a bow, they're dating now and everything. But you had mentioned kind of at the top that like you would not have made the same decision as her, so I'm kind of curious like what your view on was with how she ended up going.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's really dumb to change your entire life after you spend a week in a tiny town somewhere.
Yep.
She definitely decided to stay because he was there.
Mm,
I mean, her best friend has been there, we can assume, for a little while, and that didn't make her want to stay. But now
yep.
that, he's realized he didn't send the email 10 years later, he's like, oh, we're in love now. So now she'll stay. I think she should have gone to like New Zealand or wherever.
Yep. Yep.
But I knew from the second that no, not New Zealand. The intern was supposed to go there and didn't get it,
Yes.
and I'm like, she's gonna take the place of wherever Juniper is supposed to go because
Yeah.
Juniper is gonna stay here, and that's what happened.
Which again, I found a little confusing, right? Because you're 100% right. Like they're getting their grad or whatever. Like they're obviously doing well, but she is an intern versus Juniper, who is set up as like this,
Yeah,
expert in the field of seals or whatever. Like, how is that a one for one? Like, how does that swap out
maybe
at
they
this
got her
point?
cheaper.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, maybe it was a discount. So yeah, Juniper ends up staying, and that's actually a really good point because I didn't even think about that. Like, we know that her and Sawyer have dated or did date. Like, so for all intents and purposes, you've got to assume she's been to Mystic before and like interacted with the town in some way. So like now it's just, oh yeah, I love it because I discovered this pastry shop or Sawyer's shitty pizza.
Yeah.
Like that's what got me to stay. So she ends up taking the job. Sawyer leaves for the year, comes back, and they kiss. They have their happily ever after, and like that's where things kind of get wrapped up, right? I know I jumped all over the place, but I
You
feel like
you
we're gone. Yeah.
forgot when they release Peppermint into the
Oh my
ocean.
God, how can we forget poor
And you forgot the
Peppermint?
whole plot with Peppermint because, like, she's
I was
doing
about to
well, and
say,
then
yeah.
she's not doing well, and I'm like, "Oh my god, if this seal dies, I'm gonna die."
Well,
Um,
that would have been if the seal dies in a Hallmark movie, like that would have been dark. um,
Hallmark is like, "You think you know us?" No.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, right? Because Candace is divorced. And I feel like 5 or 10 years ago, you never would have even seen a divorced person in a Hallmark movie.
Mm.
Like
Oh,
the joke
really?
is always that like someone's significant other has died and like that's
Mm.
how they're not in the picture. Like there
Hmm.
was never a, oh, how dare you get divorced. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then yeah, there's the whole storyline of Peppermint that I didn't even bring up, but the and as we get in a lot of these too, like Sawyer and Juniper are rekindling, they're getting back together, and then they're supposed to go out on this nice date, and Peppermint takes a turn for the worse, and Juniper, they are doing like x-rays, and one of the interns gets Juniper into some sort of veterinary clinic 3 towns over or something. So Juniper kind of drops everything to take Peppermint to this doctor, and instead of calling or anything, she just sends a text that says like, hey, I need to cancel tonight, sorry.
I know.
And
Like,
yeah,
why don't you tell him what's going on? Like, again, like you can't
exactly.
communicate.
That is what, like, I found this equally as frustrating as the whole
Yeah.
email thing, because Sawyer had met Peppermint. Sawyer had very much, grown attached to Peppermint. So, like, easily could have said, hey, Peppermint's taking a turn for the worse, have to cancel tonight. And, like,
Yeah.
that would have cleared everything up. Because on the other side, we get Sawyer reads this message. He's struggling with how to reply. Like, I think he starts with some other time or no worries, blah, blah, blah. And then he just sends a thumbs up emoji. And like, that's how it goes. And I think they kind of imply that Juniper is thrown off that he just sent a thumbs up. He's thrown off that she just sent a I need to cancel. And like, we're pretty much back in the whole email situation where they're just not communicating again. So like long term, I don't know how they made it a year with him abroad and her back here, like communicating with
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't either. FaceTime,
I hope
maybe.
so. Like I hope there was some sort of like Skype or like visual communication, because there's no way they would have made it that full year if they were just
Oh my
texting or
god.
emailing.
I know.
Wouldn't it be funny if Sawyer had just like a year's worth of emails in his outbox that never got to her, and
Oh my
like
god. I know.
that's part two. That's where we get that.
Oh my god.
Um, so what did Peppermint obviously gets better. They release him into the wild. It's this whole beautiful scene.
I teared up.
Yeah.
I was like,
I
"Go Peppermint."
I literally, like, I turned to Leslie, I'm like, I don't know if it's, the 9 pounds of candy I ate yesterday or, something else floating around my system, but like I was generally misty
Yeah.
when Peppermint went back into the wild, because that freaking sea lion was it
Yeah.
was or seal, I guess
Deal.
seal. He
Yeah.
was very charismatic.
Yeah. I almost
Co-
took myself to the Central Park Zoo just to see the seals
right?
there and be like, Peppermint, which one are you?
He's such a sweet guy.
Yeah.
I assume Cork is male, but maybe not. Um, so I think that's it. I don't know anything else, and not that you had to take notes, but anything that
Mm,
you wanted to catch up on. Otherwise, I think at this point we've kind of gone through
yeah.
all the boxes.
There's nothing else. I hope that if they get married eventually, they go see like a couples therapist to
Yeah,
figure out how to like reply to emails.
I
But
think yeah, they both probably together, and then Sawyer 100%. I mean, Juniper probably does, but Sawyer, he's got some things he's got to get out, like,
well, so
and
does
hopefully
she. She
yeah.
spent the last 12 years running from every place she's ever lived.
That's
So,
true too. Like,
yeah.
there's a lot to unpack with those two. All right, so the big question here of this cast, and I assume Peppermint is on the table at this point, but you're happily ever after, who can you ride off into the sunset and spend the rest of your life with of this illustrious cast?
Um, I mean, who did who did Eric Freeman play? I can't he played a character named Peter, but I can't remember who Peter was.
Oh, I gotta find him. Where's
He's
do
the cutest.
Oh, Eric Friedman. Yep. Yeah, he was one of the
Oh,
interns.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I'd ride off into the sunset with him because he's probably going to have some sort of a stable job, and he's very cute. And
Makes sense.
I think he knows how to communicate better than Sawyer. So
Yeah. What do you know Eric Friedman from? I'm curious how you just
I
knew his name out of.
I'm looking at IMDb.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, wow,
No,
excuse me. Because
no, no, no.
he actually, looking at this, he was in Next Stop Christmas, which Mark Newell and I did. Like, I think it was like
Oh,
2 years ago at this point, but I don't remember who his character was in that. But yeah, I think he's a valid pick. Like he seemed to have his stuff together. He seemed like a better version of Sawyer, maybe. Like,
Yeah.
just all around very nice, but like also kind of has his shit together and is not
Yeah.
like running or hiding from anything. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's a good one. I would probably go with maybe Candace. Because she's got the kid, but she's very relaxed with that kid, so you don't feel a lot of pressure. Um, or Ken too. Ken seemed like a really nice guy. I like the fact that he just kind of takes over and is like, this is what you're gonna do. So, either one of those, I think you can't go wrong with.
Nice.
Um,
Candace is played by Patty Murin, who
mhm.
she's a Broadway actor, so I've seen her on Broadway
Oh,
and different things.
interesting.
So I was like, oh, cool, she's in this.
What have you seen her in, if you don't mind me asking?
She was in a musical called Liz Estrada Jones, which was
Oh.
a modern adaptation of Liz Estrada,
Oh,
and
interesting.
she was also the lead in the musical adaptation of Bring It On.
Oh my
So
God.
she was the
Wow.
Kirsten Dunst character.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
Have you go to? I think I remember from like Instagram stuff. You frequent the Broadway.
I do frequent the Broadway. Yeah.
Have you seen what's the new David Byrne? I'm looking it up right now because I can't remember about.
Here Lies Love.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think it's really fun.
is it? It's good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It gets kind of dark, but
Yeah.
oh, I need to correct myself. Patty Murin was not in Bring It On. She was in Frozen. She was Anna in
Oh
Frozen.
my lord. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
So,
nothing against Bring It On, but Frozen seems like a pretty big like upgrade. Um, so you did see it. Like I am fascinated with David Byrne. I love the Talking Heads, and I loved America Utopia,
yeah,
which is completely different. Did you see that by chance?
I did. I did.
Oh my god.
It was really interesting. So,
That is what, now completely off topic, but like that is what kind of got me into them. Like I randomly
oh yeah.
turned it on while I was working, and I'd always listened to them and I'd always enjoyed them, but like I watched that and I was just like captivated for like the 2 hours or however long it was. And by then I'm just like, I need to like hear and see like everything this guy's ever done.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Back in I want to say maybe 2009, 2010.
mhm.
David Byrne was touring with Saint Vincent
Yep. Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
recorded an album together. I didn't know who either of them were, but I was going to visit some family that lives in Maine, and they're like, we're going to see these two people that night. We'll buy you a ticket and you can come." So that was my first introduction to
Oh,
them.
that's super fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
I see him as like this is going to sound weird, but like our generations or like a New York kind of Jimmy Buffett, right? Like it's not the same vibe that Jimmy Buffett would give off, but it is like a very relaxing, like I listen to
yeah,
them and I listen to him because it like relaxes me and makes me feel nice. And I feel like that's what people get out of Jimmy Buffett too.
hmm
Which I don't know, maybe it sounds weird, but like that's kind of my connection between the two.
No,
Uh
I feel like you could chill out a lot if you like smoked a joint and listen to the
exactly.
Talking Heads. So
Exactly. Yep.
yeah.
All right, so that is Mystic Christmas. Oh, we didn't give recommendations. Would you go thumbs up, thumbs down with this? What would you think?
I would go thumbs up. I mean, I found it enjoyable. If you don't have anything else to do, why not?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I know we kind of spent a lot of time picking apart some of the plot holes here, but like at the end of the day, I actually really like this one. I love the fact that there's a seal kind of wandering
Yeah.
around the screen every once in a while. Peppermint, you can't go wrong with her
Yeah.
or him, wherever we land. And there was like a couple parts where I legitimately laughed out loud, and I thought, you know, as much as I didn't really believe the whole introvert thing that they were going for, I found her character to be pretty funny in some of those
Yeah.
scenarios. So yeah, I would say thumbs up for sure. Um, all right, so that is Mystic Christmas. A couple more things, and then we can let you go. Smalltownfailingpodcast.com is the website. You can get links to all the Instagrams and the tweets and the whatevers. A couple questions from Instagram this week. And so we're recording this on November 1st, the day after Halloween. And the first one is it too early to start setting up Christmas decorations? What's kind of your opinion?
Yeah. It's too early until after Thanksgiving.
That's valid. I think that's yeah. I have like the Christmas lights like going in the background, but I think my thing is I love and I think a lot of it has to do with I know I was joking, but like full on ADHD. Like I'm not joking, like diagnosed. So my thing is like the moment I wake up on November 1st and we do like go out, we have a lot of decorations outside for Halloween and we do a lot inside. I'm like, this is just a chore now. Like this needs to get taken down. So like literally by 4 p.m. this afternoon, everything in the lawn was gone. And it's not like oh, here's like a spooky skeleton. Like we have one of those like giant, not the big like 9 foot skeletons or whatever, but it's like a phantom. Like there's a good amount of effort that goes into getting everything down, but like it's just I need it gone. But from that point on, it's just like, oh, now the house feels empty. So I'll just start putting stuff up because, at some point it's going to get there anyway. So yeah, I agree. It is off putting, especially to see stuff in Target around like the middle of October for Christmas. But on the flip side, I like twinkly lights and it makes me
Yeah.
happy. So, they're going to be there.
Yeah. These are
Uh,
these are up all year round. These are not for Christmas.
yeah, there you go.
I actually don't decorate for any holidays, not even
Uh-huh.
Halloween, because I live in a small apartment. Where am I supposed to put all this shit after?
It's tough.
And
Yeah.
also Halloween decorations are just kind of ugly. Like I don't
Hmm.
need skulls everywhere. I love horror movies, but I don't need all that shit out. Um, and then when I moved into my first apartment after college, my mom bought me like this little like pink fake Christmas tree.
Hmm.
I gave that away to somebody real
Yeah.
quick next year. I was like, "You
I
don't need this."
100% get that, especially like when we lived back on the East Coast, like apartment, you need to be like as minimalist as possible. And taking up even just like a box in a closet of Halloween or Christmas
Mhm.
stuff, like there's space is valuable. So that was actually the next question. Did you dress up for Halloween? And if so, as what? I did not. I haven't in years. I don't know if do you dress up? Do you ever dress up? Or is it kind of just enjoy the holiday and that's that?
Um, it depends how lazy I can be and get away with it.
Mhm.
Um, Halloween of 2020, I was Becky from the movie Becky.
Oh, nice.
This year, my boyfriend and I went to a couple Halloween parties last Saturday, and we dressed up as R and Julie from Warm Bodies.
Oh,
But it
nice.
was 80 degrees that day, so he was like, "I can't wear this hoodie all day, all
Yeah.
night. I'm gonna die."
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
rough. I remember Halloween in the city, and usually it was like on the warmer side. We had snow here. There was like a full on blizzard at
Oh,
one
I'm
point. Yeah.
jealous.
It's weird. It's either since we've moved here, we've either had like sleet and like freezing rain, or we've been walking around in like t-shirts. Like it's either
Mm.
70 or it's 30 with like hail. There's no like fall in between. We get like
Yeah.
maybe a week of fall here, and that's about it.
Oh
Um,
my god.
and then it just
Mm.
goes straight to winter. But then it bumps back up to like 70 around Christmas for some reason, and just everyone's sick the entire year. It's. Last but not least, and this again, Halloween, favorite Halloween candy, and do you take candy from your kids? Which I assume is directed at me, and I 100% take candy from the kids. Like there's definitely a tax,
Yeah.
especially since legal weed became a thing. Like it's not you can't be at like 9 o'clock at night high and see a giant bag of candy and not go
Yeah.
after it. What is your kind of favorite Halloween candy? Are you a Reese's person?
Yeah, Reese's peanut butter cup I think would be
Yeah.
usually otherwise I'll just be like chewing on like a piece of like fancy dark chocolate, but if
Hmm.
if it's just like Halloween candy, it's going to be Reese's peanut
Do
butter
you
cups.
do you have a preference of the Christmas trees versus the pumpkins as far as which is better, or is it all kind of the same?
It's all the same. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, that makes sense. I think I always try and figure out which one is bigger, but I'm sure they're both exactly the same when it
Yeah.
boils down to. Um, awesome. Well, that's that. So like I said, Small Town Failing Podcast. You can get links to Twitter, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, where you can watch the video of this episode and past ones. There's a Cameo link if you're looking for a awful holiday gift for that special loved one. Allison, where can everybody find you, and what is the latest on the Who's There podcast?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh yeah.
You can find me all podcasting platforms, or you can go to who'stherepodcast.com. Um, we're Who's Their PC on Twitter and Instagram. And then most recently, I had Dennis. Hold on. Sorry, you're gonna have to.
I put you
I
on the
don't
spot.
even. Yeah.
Everyone,
Um.
they can get the back episodes, or they get all the episodes at the site, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Well, no, thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast. I hope your first Hallmark movie was painless. I think you got a decent one, for the
Yeah.
first. There's definitely been a couple where people have come on and I'm like, ugh, I'm sorry. I need to
Oh.
apologize. Uh, we'll have to try out because we've done a bunch of like the Lifetime stabby movies. So we
Mm.
can give that a go next time and
Okay.
see
Yeah.
how things go. Um,
Awesome.
well, awesome. Thank you very much. Next few episodes, I already have planned out. I don't have them in front of me or remember what they are, but just know there's a plan in place. So it's, mostly going to be a lot of holiday stuff. And yeah, I think that'll do it for this time. Thank you again. And thanks everyone for listening. All right. Bye.
Bye.
There it is. All right.